Hey guys, tonight we begin in the dark. Not just the kind outside your window, but the kind that flickers just behind your eyelids where dreams begin. You're sitting cross-legged at the mouth of a cave, a tiny fire crackling at your feet. The smoke curling into the night like a restless thought. The stars above you are crisp and countless, and somewhere deeper in the cave someone is painting on the walls. Not with paintbrushes, with fingers. With crushed minerals, animal fat, and the quiet hope that what lives in the mind can live outside of it too. Maybe don't try living in this era if you still use shampoo. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're listening from a cave, well, please tell us what century it is. Drop your location and time in the comments. It's always fun seeing where we all are in the world. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're huddled beside our distant ancestors. Let's call them people. Even if their skulls are slightly different from yours. Their nights are long and full of predators, and yet they close their eyes, they sleep, and they dream. Nobody tells them to. No one has to explain what REM cycles are. They just do it because it's ancient, older than language, possibly older than fire. Even in this world of bone tools and gut string, something inside the brain lights up at night. Something hallucinates. You would think that when survival is on the line, the last thing you'd want is your brain running fantasy software. But here's the twist. Dreaming might be why they survived it all. Some evolutionary biologists argue that dreams began as a virtual reality training ground. If you're an early human, you don't get to practice escaping a bear more than once in real life. But in dreams, you can run, hide, learn, fail, try again. Some even think this is why dreams are so often stressful or surreal. It's your brain pressure testing your reactions in a fake world, so you'll do better in the real one. There's this theory called the threat simulation theory. Sounds like a 90s video game, right? But it's serious science. It suggests that dreaming evolved specifically to simulate threats and rehearse responses. And sure, you might never have to escape a saber tooth in your city apartment, but your ancient brain still loves to run through the drill. And here's a weird fact. REM sleep, the dream heavy phase, appears in pretty much every mammal, and even birds. Yes, birds. If you've ever seen a parrot twitching in its sleep, it might be flying through dream skies. The universality of REM sleep hints that it's not a bug in evolution's code. It's a deeply embedded feature. Now imagine being in that cave again. You're lying on a bed of furs. It's cold, the fire's gone out, your stomach's still turning from roots that probably shouldn't have been eaten. But your brain is active. More active, in fact, than when you're awake. Your heart rate changes. Your eyes flicker wildly behind closed lids. Inside your skull, strange things are happening. If someone could hook your brain up to an EEG, which, doesn't exist for another 35,000 years, they'd see a light show. REM sleep is bizarre. Your body is paralyzed to keep you from acting out dreams. But your brain is firing almost like you're awake. In fact, sometimes more than when you're awake. Imagine watching TV, but inside your head, with your body on lockdown. It's like your brain's own Netflix, but one where the plot is written on the fly. Some researchers have wondered if the cost of REM sleep, the vulnerability, the energy, the complexity, means that dreaming must serve a crucial function. Evolution doesn't waste calories lightly, and sleep, especially REM sleep, is metabolically expensive. So if we're doing it night after night across species and epochs, there has to be a reason. Of course, not everyone agrees. Some neuroscientists argue that dreams are just a side effect of brain maintenance, like taking your computer offline to defrag the hard drive. The dreams, they say, are just static. Random firings your brain tries to make sense of. But we'll get to that later. For now, you're curled up next to the cave wall, eyes twitching beneath your eyelids, and something strange is happening. Your hands are twitching too. small rhythmic pulses. You might be running in the dream, or climbing or falling. If it feels real, that's because your brain is using the same regions it would if you were actually doing those things. Motor cortex, visual cortex, they're all lit up. The only difference is you're horizontal and motionless. And here's a joke. If you ever feel embarrassed about weird dreams, just remember, your ancestors probably had weirder ones, and they had to explain them to people who thought thunder was a god. Back in that cave, if you had a dream of a bear that bit you, you might wake up and move your sleeping spot, maybe higher up, maybe closer to the fire. Maybe that dream, fictional, nonsensical, saves your life, or maybe it doesn't, and the tribe's shaman chalks it up to bad spirits. Either way, dreaming has consequences. By now, you're probably wondering, do we know when dreams actually started? Short answer, no. Long answer, we can't exactly ask a Neanderthal about their REM cycles. But brain size and complexity give us clues. The bigger and more folded the cortex, the more likely it supports dreaming. And by the time humans were making cave art, they almost certainly were making dreams. And maybe there's a link between the two. Think about it. Both are forms of internal imagery projected outward. One fades when you wake. The other sticks to the wall for thousands of years. So as you lie there, drifting deeper into that prehistoric world, with firelight flickering across painted mammoth and half-remembered dreams, just know this. Dreaming isn't a modern glitch. It's as old as imagination itself, as ancient as fear, and just as essential. The fire's burned out. You're deeper in sleep now, and the cave walls have faded. Instead, you're standing in an enormous stone hall, lit by oil lamps and echoing with the scratch of reeds on clay. Welcome to Mesopotamia, roughly 3,000 years before common sense existed, and even longer before dream journals had QR codes. Here, dreams aren't just flickers in the night. They're messages from the gods. You don't analyze them, you obey them. If you lived here, your dreams could determine your marriage, your crops, even your life expectancy. Had a vision of a lion eating your leg? Better not travel this week. Dreamt of a rising river? Maybe it's time to appease the god Enki. And if you were important enough, your dreams weren't private. Oh no. They were read like official reports, interpreted by temple priests, cataloged on clay tablets, and added to the empire's psychic weather forecast. The ancient Sumerians, Babylonians, and later the Egyptians treated dreams as supernatural telegrams. They believed your soul temporarily left your body during sleep and wandered through divine realms, like astral projection, but with more jackal-headed deities. And if it brought back a vision, that was a transmission worth decoding. You'd think that kind of belief would fade, but no, Egyptians doubled down. Pharaohs built dream temples. Priests developed entire guidebooks, like the Book of Dreams, with instructions for decoding symbols. For instance, dreaming of teeth falling out wasn't just dental anxiety, it could mean a family death. Dreaming of drinking warm beer, that's a good omen. Dreaming of cold beer, something's terribly wrong. One theory still debated today suggests these dream guides were early attempts at psychology. Primitive, yes, but structured. It's like if tarot cards in the DSM-5 had a very dusty baby. Even more fascinating, they practiced a form of dream incubation. You would sleep in a sacred space under statues of gods and wait for a sent dream. Some temples even had staff whose job was to wake you and record your dream as soon as you stirred. A dream scribe, that's either an honor or a very weird 3 a.m. wake-up call. This isn't just religious superstition, it was also a kind of proto-science, a way of systematizing the inexplicable. Think about it, they're collecting data, noting patterns, forming rules. They didn't have brain scans, but they had clay archives. It's not science by today's standards, but it was an early stab at consistency, repeatable outcomes, a fragile grasp on chaos. Now step over into ancient Greece. You're reclining on a stone bench, because apparently that's how people used to go to sleep in sanctuaries. Around you, people are mumbling prayers to Asclepius, the god of healing. They've come for dream cures too. It's called incubatio. And it's not unlike spending the night in a hospital, hoping your dreams diagnose you better than your doctor. Some patients reported miraculous healing after dreaming of surgical procedures performed by divine hands. Others dreamed of being licked by sacred snakes. Gross? Yes, but somehow therapeutic in this context. Again, the belief, dreams as messages, not nonsense. Here's something odd. Many of these dream stories contain emotional details, fear, relief, joy. That's one of the things modern researchers still study, emotional salience. Dreams that stick tend to be emotionally loaded, which makes them more likely to be remembered. Maybe that's why these ancient stories survived at all. Some historians argue that early dream interpretation gave birth to narrative medicine, the idea that a patient's personal story, including their dreams, has diagnostic value. And even today, some therapists still explore dreams not for prophecy, but for emotional clues. Still, not everyone agreed with the divine theory. Aristotle had other ideas. He wrote that dreams were the result of digestion. Literally, food fumes rising to the head. You know that feeling when you eat a spicy meal too close to bedtime and dream you're being chased by lava? Aristotle would just nod wisely and hand you a salad. Others believed dreams were echoes of waking life, like mental leftovers reheated during sleep. That debate, spiritual message versus mental echo, still hasn't fully ended. Some neuroscientists argue dreams are purely internal, while others leave space for cultural and emotional significance. You're starting to see a pattern here, right? Across cultures and centuries, humans tried to decode dreams not because they were curious, but because they were urgent. Dreams felt personal, powerful, dangerous even. If you had a nightmare, it wasn't just a dream. It could be a warning, a judgment, or a glimpse of the divine. There's a stone tablet from Babylon cataloging a dream where someone sees their house collapsing. That wasn't just a bad vibe back then. It was grounds for legal consultation. They might move, sacrifice a goat, or cancel a political deal. You know, the usual Tuesday decisions. It's easy to laugh at this now, but pause for a second. How different are we really? People still Google dreams about teeth falling out and panic. We might not blame Anubis anymore, but we haven't let go of the idea that dreams mean something. Even modern dream research still struggles to separate pattern from projection. We assign meaning because the human brain is a meaning machine. It can't not do it. That's why we see faces in toast and hear songs in static. Dreams are just another signal, and we are wired to interpret. You leave the stone sanctuaries and walk toward the future, but the belief in dreams as messages sticks with you like dust on your sandals. It'll travel with you to Rome, through the Renaissance, and even into your own bedroom, where a weird dream can still derail your morning. You've stepped out of the temple now back into starlight, but the dreams follow. They don't need statues anymore. They live in neurons night after night, shaping how you wake. You're lying on a hard wooden cot wrapped in a coarse wool blanket somewhere deep in the heart of the Roman Empire. There's incense in the air, myrrh probably, and a quiet chant rising from the street below. You're in a city now, not a cave or a temple, but the dreams still come. Only now they've become political. Roman emperors didn't just listen to generals, they consulted dreams. Augustus, it said, once spared a man from execution after dreaming he was a good soul. Caligula, meanwhile, claimed divine right to rule based on dreams, which, let's be honest, might explain a few things. You open your eyes in the dream, and you're standing in a marble hall greeted by gods, ancestors, sometimes even animals speaking in Latin. No pressure. If you misinterpret this vision, someone could die, or you could find yourself commanding an army tomorrow. Dream interpretation becomes a tool of power. If you can read the dreams of others, you can steer their decisions. And if you can control what they think their dreams mean, you might just rule the empire without ever drawing a sword. By now, dreams aren't just personal, they're strategic. You'd be surprised how many Roman military campaigns were delayed, diverted, or launched based on the dreams of commanders. There's even a record of a general refusing to attack because a dream warned him of snakes in his path. Turns out it rained the next day and flooded the enemy camp. Coincidence? Maybe. But would you risk it? And here's a fun little side note. Romans didn't just dream about war, they dreamed about dinner. One famous Roman dream involved a giant fish platter that foretold abundance. So yes, even in the grand halls of imperial power, the brain still dreams about snacks. Let's wander over to a Roman dream interpreter's office. Picture shelves of scrolls, stacked with symbols and omens. A client arrives, anxious. Last night he dreamed of flying. The interpreter nods gravely, referencing Ars Notoria, or some now lost manual of dream logic. Flying, he says, means ambition, or escape, or perhaps indigestion. It depends on whether your wings were feathered or wax. Some historians now believe that much of this dream work functioned as an early form of psychological comfort, a way to explain the inexplicable. If you woke up shaken, at least someone could tell you what it meant, even if they were just guessing. Fast forward a few centuries, and you're lying in a feather bed in the medieval world. The candle beside your head has just gone out. Dreams are still messages, but now they come from heaven or hell. This is the age of dream morality. If you dream of sin, it's not symbolic, it's sinful. A nightmare might mean demonic attack. A pleasant dream might be a test. Either way, you're being watched. Some monks even kept dream diaries, terrified of what they'd find. There are accounts of clergymen confessing dreams as if they were waking crimes. Imagine going to your confessor and saying, "Forgive me, Father, for I dreamed about dancing." Not exactly a rave review of your subconscious. But not everyone thought dreams were dangerous. Hildegard of Bingen, nun, mystic, and actual genius, believed her vivid dream visions were divine messages. She wrote them down in blazing detail, complete with illustrations. Some of her dream records look like psychedelic fractals, centuries before the word psychedelic existed. Her visions blurred the lines between spiritual experience and inner perception. And here's a twist. Her descriptions match what modern neurologists might call migraine aura or temporal lobe epilepsy. Bright lights, spinning colors, waves of euphoria and dread. So, religious vision or neural lightning storm? Scientists still debate that. Meanwhile, ordinary people dreamed of angels, demons, dragons, sometimes all in the same night. And those dreams could become public affairs. A farmer might report a dream of a flood, and suddenly the entire village is building a new altar. Dreams shape behavior. They stir fear. And sometimes they offer hope. You'd think the Renaissance would rationalize all this, but no. During the Renaissance, dreams got theatrical. You're in Florence now, walking past a printing press clattering away. Dream books are everywhere. Not just scholarly treatises, bestsellers. One of the most popular books of the 16th century was Onerocritica by Artemidorus, a Greek author from way back, now enjoying a revival. It's like the BuzzFeed quiz of its time. What does your dream say about you? Take our papyrus test to find out. These books mixed folklore, philosophy, and flat-out fantasy. Dream of a snake could mean wealth, or betrayal, or sexual frustration, depending on which century you asked. Some thinkers started to push back. Descartes argued that dreams prove nothing. After all, if you can't tell whether you're dreaming, how can you trust your senses at all? Welcome to the brain in a vat problem, now with powdered wigs. And yet dreams kept showing up in art, poetry, even politics. Shakespeare stuffed them into plays. We are such stuff as dreams are made on, Prospero says in The Tempest. And while that sounds poetic, it's also kind of terrifying. You're made of sleep fog and wishful thinking. Good luck with that. But you're also made of questions, because even now in your soft Renaissance nightshirt, yes, you're wearing one, deal with it. You wonder, what is the brain actually doing during all this? That's where things begin to shift. Dreaming is no longer just divine or symbolic. It starts to become biological. Soon enough, we'll have microscopes, electricity, and Freud. Don't worry, we'll get there. But right now, your body is tucked beneath linen sheets. your brain a silent theater. And though the script may be random, the actors, your fears, your memories, your deepest longings are very real. So when you wake, maybe you'll remember a fragment, a shape, a whisper, or maybe not. But somewhere inside, the ancient machinery keeps spinning, dreaming, remembering, even if you don't. You're lying in a plush Victorian bed now under layers of quilted comforters and embroidered pillows. The candles flickered out, replaced by a gas lamp that hisses softly. The air smells faintly of coal smoke and lavender sachets. Outside, horses clop on cobbled streets, but inside, the world is quiet. It's the 19th century, and you're about to dream for science. This is when everything changes. Before now, dreams were mostly considered mystical, moral, or metaphorical. But in this moment, right here, dreams are being dissected, studied, pinned like butterflies under glass. And who else would lead the charge but Sigmund Freud? You're probably already rolling your eyes, and that's fair. But let's give the man his moment. Imagine you're in Freud's study. It smells like cigar smoke and leather-bound books. The curtains are heavy, and there's a worn couch against the wall. The couch. He gestures for you to lie down. You're not sick exactly, but you are troubled. Something haunts your dreams. Freud leans in, and with the intensity of someone who hasn't blinked in 10 minutes, he begins to explain. Dreams are wish fulfillment. That's his core theory. Every dream, no matter how strange, represents a hidden desire, usually from childhood, usually repressed, and yes, usually sexual. Welcome to Freudian Analysis. You will never look at a train tunnel the same way again. One of the most famous dreams in his book, The Interpretation of Dreams, involves Irma's injection, an unsettling vision with layers of guilt, medical failure, and subconscious ego defense. Freud believed that by unpacking the symbols, you could reveal buried truths about the dreamer's psyche. Basically, your dreams are encrypted files, and he's the only guy with the password. But here's the scientific debate that still rages. Are dreams really symbolic, or are we just great at making connections after the fact? Carl Jung, Freud's former protege turned rival, thought dreams weren't just personal, they were archetypal. He argued that we all draw from a collective unconscious, a shared symbolic language. So when you dream of a snake, it's not just your personal fear of reptiles, it's a primal image, death, rebirth, temptation, transformation, baked into the human story. Freud saw your dreams as a confessional. Jung saw them as myth. Two brilliant minds, one velvet-gloved intellectual slap fight. Today, neuroscientists are divided on whether dreams really hide coded messages. Some say yes. Dreams can reflect unresolved emotional conflicts. Others argue that dreams are just mental noise, the result of your brain trying to make sense of random firing neurons during sleep. That debate, still ongoing. Dream symbolism versus random narrative stitching. It's basically the Marvel versus DC of psychology. Passionate fans. No clear winner. But Freud gave us something enduring. The idea that dreams could be studied systematically. That they weren't divine whispers or random chaos, but structured glimpses into our inner life. His dream theory wasn't just pop psychology. It was the first major attempt to bridge subjective experience with scientific curiosity. And whether or not you buy into Oedipal symbols or cigar metaphors, Freud did help put dreams on the research map. Let's talk about a strange but true fact. In the early 20th century, some psychoanalysts kept dream journals for their patients that spanned decades. Imagine someone analyzing your nightmares for 20 years straight. Ah, yes, another hallway dream. Very interesting. Tell me more about your mother. But dream journals weren't just for therapy. Artists got in on it too. Salvador Dali used sleeping with a spoon as a dream capture technique. He'd nap holding a spoon above a plate, and when he drifted off, the spoon would drop and wake him, right in the hypnagogic state when the dream was still vivid. Then he'd sketch the melting clocks and elephants on stilts that he saw in those moments. Genius or madness? Again, ongoing debate. This brings us to something curious. The line between waking and dreaming isn't as sharp as you think. That drifting off feeling, that's the hypnagogic state. And it's its own playground of weird. You might see flashes of light, hear voices, feel a sudden falling sensation. This is the moment when logic loosens and dream logic starts sneaking in. Thomas Edison, by the way, did the same thing as Dali, napping with steel balls in hand, trying to catch the ideas that came just before sleep pulled him under. These brief dreams, lasting seconds, often contain whole scenes, a conversation, a city, an emotion. Your brain builds an entire world in the blink between wakefulness and sleep. Some researchers believe this micro-dreaming phase might be the most creatively fertile state your brain can reach. That's why so many ideas, scientific, musical, philosophical, are born in dreams. Like when Dmitri Mendeleev reportedly saw the periodic table in a dream and wrote it down upon waking. Or when Paul McCartney dreamed the melody to Yesterday. Or when you dreamed that thing about your ex and a robot giraffe. And let's be honest, maybe you're not ready to unpack that one yet. And now we come to another hot scientific debate. Do dreams serve a purpose? Are they rehearsals? Emotional detox? Neural housekeeping? Some theories suggest dreams help us process emotions and memories, sort of like clearing your brain's cache. Others argue they're problem-solving rehearsals, a simulated sandbox where you test out danger, loss, and confusion without real-world consequences. There's even a hypothesis called the threat simulation theory, which says dreams evolved to help us practice dealing with threats, running from wolves, escaping floods. These aren't just scary dreams, they're training simulations, evolutionary warm-ups for real life. So the next time you dream you're being chased, you can thank your ancestors and maybe your adrenal glands. Of course, not every dream is so dramatic. Some are just you wandering a mall with no shoes. Still a mystery. And that's where we are now, somewhere between Freudian metaphor, biological rehearsal, and accidental art project. You turn in your sleep, the fire in the grate has gone out, but the air is still warm with thought. You've passed through mystics and monks, emperors and analysts, and dreams have changed with each of them. But one thing hasn't changed. You still dream every night, even if you don't remember. You close your eyes again, and behind them, another story begins. You're finally in the modern age now, lying in your own bed, pillows just the way you like them, phone screen still glowing faintly from that last scroll. You're warm, tucked in, maybe listening to this on a sleep timer, and just as your eyelids grow heavy, somewhere inside your brain, lights start to flicker. This is REM sleep. You've probably heard the term before, rapid eye movement, but it's more than just a sleep stage. It's the kingdom of dreams. And now, for the first time in history, scientists are watching your dreams in real time. Well, sort of. Let's rewind to the 1950s. You're in a sleep lab at the University of Chicago. It's cold, and the buzzing of early electrical equipment fills the room. Nathaniel Kleitman and his grad student, Eugene Azarinsky, are the first to notice something strange in sleeping volunteers. Their eyes move rapidly beneath closed lids, not just twitching randomly, but darting back and forth, like they're watching something. And here's the twist. When they wake these volunteers during those eye movements, nearly every single one reports vivid dreams. That's the birth of REM research. And suddenly, dreams go from mystic visions to observable brain activity. Your body during REM is a contradiction. Your brain lights up like it's wide awake, but your muscles are paralyzed. It's called REM atonia, a safety feature, if you will, so you don't act out your dreams and karate chop your nightstand. Most of the time, this system works beautifully, unless you've got a sleep disorder, in which case your dog might dream run across the kitchen floor. Here's a bizarre fact. Dolphins, who need to surface to breathe, don't have REM like we do. Instead, they sleep with one hemisphere of the brain at a time. Half their brain sleeps, the other half stays alert for danger and breathing. So technically, a dolphin is always half awake. Try using that as an excuse at work. But back to you. During REM, your brain does something magical. It simulates entire experiences. The sensory areas light up as if you're really seeing, hearing, moving. Your prefrontal cortex, the seat of logic and planning, dials way down. That's why dream logic feels so dreamlike. You can teleport, forget basic facts, and emotionally spiral because someone handed you the wrong kind of pasta. There's a scientific tug of war about why REM dreams are so intense. Some believe dreams help you rehearse emotional situations like social conflict or loss without the stakes of real life. Others argue that REM is your brain's way of consolidating memory and processing learning. If you practice piano before bed, guess when your brain does the mental replay? That's right, REM. In fact, one study found that when people learn a task and then don't get REM sleep, their performance drops. Get good REM? Their skills improve overnight. So yes, dreams may literally be the ultimate study session. And no, cramming all night without sleep isn't impressing your neurons. Here's where things get weirder. Scientists can now guess with surprising accuracy what you're dreaming about. Using brain imaging tools like fMRI, researchers compare your brain activity during REM with your activity while looking at images while awake. It turns out dreaming of a face activates the same part of your brain as seeing one. Same for movement, places, even objects. In one experiment, people were shown hundreds of images while awake. Then they were scanned during REM. The researchers could decode the dream by matching the patterns. So yes, we're inching closer to dream recordings. But don't worry, we're still years away from Netflix, Subconscious Edition. And let's not forget the oddball REM facts. For instance, fetuses experience REM before they're even born. What are they dreaming about in there? No one knows. But it raises questions about when dreaming actually begins and what it means for brain development. Also, people who are blind from birth, they don't dream in images, but they still experience dreams filled with emotion, sound, spatial awareness, and touch. Their brains create full dream worlds just with a different palette. Proof again that the brain will always find a way to storytell. Meanwhile, back in the lab, you've got wires glued to your scalp, chest, and temples. It's called polysomnography, a kind of full-body sleep scan. Researchers measure your brain waves, muscle tone, eye movements, even your breathing and heart rate, all while you drool into a hospital pillow. Glamorous. The moment your eyes start to twitch, they mark the time. 10 minutes, 20. They watch your brain enter a dream sequence like a movie premiere, and when they wake you, you gasp and say, "I was flying through clouds shaped like dinosaurs." They nod, jot it down. Science is satisfied. But there's still mystery here, because even with all this data, scientists don't fully understand why we need REM. If it's so important, why do some animals barely have it? Why do some people lose it with age and still function just fine? There are cases of people with brain damage who never enter REM sleep again, and yet they live, work, and dream just the same. That's right, REM and dreaming, while often linked, aren't the same. You can dream in non-REM sleep too. It's just different, less vivid, more thought-like you're having ideas instead of hallucinations. So maybe dreaming isn't about one specific brainwave or sleep stage. Maybe it's just what the brain does when it's left to wander. You shift under your blanket now, and somewhere inside your brain hums. REM is waiting, like a midnight projector about to roll the next reel. You don't know what scene will come next, but when it does, your muscles will go quiet, your eyes will flicker, and your mind will lift off like a kite, all from the safety of your bed. You're floating now, not in a dream, but in the soft haze between memory and imagination. The REM cycle has passed, and your body shifts, readjusting. Maybe you sigh, maybe you roll over, but your brain isn't done with the night just yet. This is when the dreams turn strange. Welcome to NREM, non-rapid eye movement sleep. Less famous than its flashier sibling, but in many ways just as important, and possibly even weirder. NREM sleep happens in stages numbered 1 through 4, or sometimes just 1 through 3, depending on which textbook you're holding. The deeper the stage, the slower your brain waves. By the time you hit slow wave sleep, the deepest phase, your brain is pulsing in high amplitude, low frequency waves like a lighthouse beam moving in slow motion. It's during this deep NREM sleep that your body does its most essential repair work. Muscles rebuild, the immune system gets a reboot, growth hormone is released. If RM is for emotion and memory, NREM is for maintenance and survival. But here's the twist. You also dream during NREM, and the dreams here are different, more fragmented, more thought-like, less cinematic. Some researchers say these dreams are the thinking dreams. You're solving puzzles, replaying routines, processing raw data, and sometimes you're experiencing something called sleep mentation, which feels like having random disconnected thoughts until suddenly they coalesce into something coherent, or maybe not. You might dream you're reading a book you can't finish, or trying to dial a phone number that changes every time. You're walking through your old school, but it's also a train station, and your math teacher is now made of bees. Classic NREM chaos. This stage also opens the door to one of the most unsettling dream-related phenomena, sleepwalking. You're in deep NREM sleep. Your brain is mostly offline, but your motor cortex still active enough to get you out of bed and across the room, or out the front door, or into the kitchen to eat an entire stick of butter like a popsicle. It happens. Some people have driven cars, climbed out windows, even committed crimes, all while technically asleep. It's called somnambulism, and it usually affects kids more than adults, but not always. If you ever wake up standing in the hallway holding a houseplant, maybe blame your NREM. Here's a strange fact. There's a condition called sexsomnia, in which people initiate sexual behavior while still in NREM sleep, and they don't remember it afterward. It's rare, but real, and it raises fascinating legal and ethical questions. Are you responsible for what you do in a dream? The courts aren't quite sure, and science is still trying to catch up. But the deepest NREM stage holds something even more surreal, night terrors. Not nightmares. Those tend to occur during REM. Night terrors are different. Your body bolts upright. You might scream. You're drenched in sweat, eyes wide open, but you're not fully awake and you won't remember much, if anything. It's as if your brain has short-circuited during a hardware update. Night terrors are more common in children, but adults can experience them too, especially under stress or with sleep disorders like apnea or PTSD. The terrifying thing is, even though you seem awake, your brain is still mostly offline. You're not dreaming of fear. You are fear. It's here in this murky, half-conscious place that science stumbles. We can map brain waves, measure hormones, scan oxygen levels, but we still don't fully understand how or why some dreams become terror factories while others dissolve into nonsense. Some researchers believe that NREM dreams help organize your long-term memories, like a librarian sorting books into the right shelves. Others argue they help with emotional regulation, like reprocessing the day's anxiety in a safer, blurrier format. Think of it like a detox for your frontal lobe. And then there's the ongoing debate. Which type of dreaming is more important, REM or NREM? Some neuroscientists argue that the high voltage cleanup of NREM is the real MVP, doing all the emotional laundry while you're unconscious. Others say the vivid, story-driven world of REM is what shapes your waking personality. And still others shrug and say both. You need both. Don't pick sides. You snuggle deeper into the blankets and your own brain right now is cycling between these stages in roughly 90-minute waves. Light sleep, deep sleep, REM, repeat. about 5 or 6 times a night if you're lucky. It's like surfing on invisible tides. And as your brain moves through the quiet waters of NREM again, it dips into something called dream incubation, where waking thoughts, worries, or hopes influence your sleep content. You might not be flying over neon cities, but instead dreaming of spreadsheets, forgotten errands, or conversations that never happened. It's mundane, but meaningful. Studies have shown that people who think about a problem before bed are more likely to dream about it. Not necessarily solve it, but engage with it, sometimes in surprising ways. A group of college students once tried incubating dreams to answer academic questions. Some reported vague symbolic dreams that pointed them in new directions. Others just dreamt about their alarm clocks. Still, the idea sticks. What you go to sleep thinking about might shape what you see in the dark. So tonight, maybe whisper a question to yourself before drifting off. You never know who might answer. Your subconscious or some strange version of your boss wearing a cape and offering cryptic advice in a shopping mall. Sleep, even NREM sleep, is not empty. It's alive with flickering thoughts, bursts of memory, and echoes of things you didn't know you remembered. It's not always pleasant. Sometimes it's nonsense, but it's yours. You exhale slowly, and somewhere, the librarian in your head files one more memory into place. A new card in the catalog, another page turned. And in the silence of NREM, your mind waits for the next cycle. You're back in the middle of a sleep cycle now, somewhere between the velvet dark of slow wave NREM and the technicolor swirl of REM. The rhythms of the night tug gently at your neurons. You're drifting, but your brain is busy. And here's the strange part. Your dreams might not be yours alone. Let's rewind again, not to ancient times this time, but to the where you're in a psychology lab, maybe sitting on a beanbag chair surrounded by wood paneling and the smell of instant coffee. There's a man here with a theory. His name is Carl Sagan. Yes, that Carl Sagan, the cosmic guy. But he's not talking about galaxies. He's wondering whether dreams might be a kind of inherited language. It's a question that has haunted science for centuries. Do we dream in universal patterns? Carl Jung thought so. He called it the collective unconscious, a library of symbols and archetypes that all humans share. Your dreams, in this view, might feature the same crumbling staircases, deep oceans, or shadowy strangers that someone else dreams about on the other side of the world. You've never met, but you've both stood on the same cliff in your sleep. But is there science in that? Kind of. Modern researchers have found that certain dream themes, like falling, being chased, or showing up somewhere naked, are remarkably common across cultures, age groups, and languages. Even people who don't know each other or grow up on opposite sides of the globe report eerily similar dream motifs. One of the most universal, teeth falling out. Yep, it's not just you. That dream haunts people from Tokyo to Toronto. Some say it symbolizes anxiety about aging or loss of control. Others think it might just be your brain's way of processing physical sensations, like clenching your jaw in your sleep. Either way, it's unsettling. And then there's flying. So many people dream of flying, not in planes, but on their own, arms out, bodies weightless, soaring over rooftops or trees. No jet fuel, just gravity-defying joy. It might be one of the most commonly reported positive dreams. A kind of subconscious wish fulfillment, like your brain is saying, look what you could do without limits. So the question remains, are our dreams shaped by culture, or are they born from biology? Some psychologists argue that our dream imagery is influenced by what we see, what we fear, and what we desire, filtered through our own cultural lenses. You dream of elevators if you live in cities, or of deserts if you live in wide open land. You see faces that resemble people in your daily life, even strangers glimpsed in crowds. But others believe that some dream elements are hardwired. Think about this. People who've never seen a spider in real life can still dream about them. Babies dream of falling before they've ever been on a ledge, and in sleep labs, even animals seem to replay experiences that might resemble chasing, hiding, or exploring. In fact, rats trained to run mazes will exhibit the same firing patterns in their brains while asleep as they did while awake, almost like they're reliving the maze. Scientists call this replay. It's as if memory and dreaming are tangled in the same net. So maybe dreams are more than a brain quirk. Maybe they're an evolutionary tool. There's a theory called the threat simulation hypothesis. It suggests that dreaming evolved as a way to practice facing danger without real consequences. You dream of running, hiding, defending yourself, not because your life is dramatic, but because your brain is rehearsing survival. If you lived in a prehistoric world, that dream of being chased might have helped you prepare for real predators. In today's world, your predator might be a work presentation or a missed rent payment, but the neural machinery is the same. Fear, motion, consequence, all playing out in the safe sandbox of your sleeping mind. And here's something even stranger. You can train your dreams. Ever heard of lucid dreaming? That's when you become aware while dreaming that you're dreaming, and then you gain control. You can fly, you can change the scenery, you can walk up to the monster and ask, hey, what do you represent? Do you? People have been writing about lucid dreams for centuries, but now we have tools to study them. In lab settings, trained lucid dreamers can signal to researchers from inside the dream by moving their eyes in pre-agreed patterns. Imagine blinking in Morse code while flying over a dreamscape. Science loves this. But not everyone can do it easily. You have to practice, keep a dream journal, do reality checks throughout the day. Tell yourself as you're falling asleep that you'll recognize the dream state. It's part self-hypnosis, part mental gymnastics. And yet it works. Some people use lucid dreams for fun, others for therapy, facing traumas, rewriting nightmares, or just practicing confidence. Your brain doesn't fully distinguish between imagined success and real practice, so flying in a dream might help you feel more grounded in real life. Still, there's a debate. Are lucid dreams really dreams? Or are they some hybrid state, not quite sleep, not quite wake? Some neuroscientists suggest lucid dreaming represents a unique brain mode, where self-awareness is restored without full consciousness. Others argue it disrupts the natural function of dreams, which might be more about processing than play. But hey, if you can rewrite your nightmares into musicals, you're probably doing okay. Tonight, you might not control your dreams, but even if they seem random, they're not empty. Your sleeping brain is doing its best with the ingredients it has. Your memories, your emotions, your fears, your joys. And maybe, just maybe, it dips into something deeper. A collective pattern, an ancient script. You breathe gently now, unaware of the world flickering behind your closed eyes. A forest, a staircase, a voice you don't recognize saying something you'll forget by morning. It doesn't have to make sense. It just has to move you. Your breathing is soft now, steady. Outside, the real world has faded into a blur of shadows and silence. Inside, your brain is doing something unexpected. It's time to talk about dreams and creativity. You might think that creativity lives in the waking world, scribbled on napkins, typed into Word docs, painted on ceilings by sleep-deprived artists. But some of the greatest aha moments in science, art, and invention happen not in labs or studios, but in dreams. Take Auguste Kekulé, a 19th century chemist trying to crack the structure of benzene. The problem was the molecule didn't make sense. None of the linear models worked. Then one night, Kekulé dreamed of a snake biting its own tail, forming a ring. He woke up with a gasp and realized benzene isn't a chain, it's a loop. That dream changed organic chemistry forever. Or Paul McCartney. He woke up with the melody of Yesterday fully formed in his head, convinced he must have accidentally remembered someone else's song. He hadn't. His subconscious had just composed a Beatles classic while he slept. No big deal. It's not magic, it's neuroscience. When you sleep, especially during REM, your brain loosens the reins on logic and linearity. The default mode network, the part of your brain involved in introspection and daydreaming, gets more active. Meanwhile, the prefrontal cortex, the bossy part that demands structure and reason, takes a little nap of its own. The result, your mind starts making connections it wouldn't normally make. You pair ideas that don't belong together. You paint metaphors across unrelated memories. It's like your brain is playing jazz in a candlelit room. That's why some of your dreams feel bizarre but poetic. Why the weird mashups of people, places, and feelings somehow make emotional sense. Your brain isn't broken, it's improvising. And this improvisation isn't just artistic, it's practical. Studies have shown that people perform better on certain types of problem-solving tasks after a good night's sleep, especially if they dreamed about the problem. In one experiment, participants trying to solve a complex maze were more successful if they napped and dreamed about the maze, even vaguely. It didn't need to be accurate, just emotionally connected. Your subconscious isn't solving equations, it's scanning the emotional landscape for clues. Ever wake up with a new perspective on something that felt impossible the night before? That's dream-based creativity in action. You weren't running spreadsheets in your sleep. You were reframing the whole problem. And it works in all kinds of fields. Inventors dream of gadgets. Writers dream of plot twists. Mathematicians dream of shapes and patterns. One guy even dreamed the algorithm that later helped him win the lottery, although, full disclosure, it was a scratch-off, and he only won $20. But creativity through dreaming isn't limited to geniuses or lottery hopefuls. You do it too. Every time you remember a strange, beautiful dream and think, where did that even come from? That's your inner artist doing midnight work. Still, there's a debate. Some neuroscientists argue that dreams are nothing more than neural noise, random firings of the brain that our minds try to weave into stories out of habit, like seeing shapes in clouds or hearing a melody in static. But others push back, saying, sure, the ingredients might be random, but the way we arrange them is meaningful. The dream itself becomes a kind of self-curated exhibit of our emotions, fears, and hidden thoughts, like abstract art painted by your sleeping mind. And that leads us into the concept of oniric insight. It's the idea that dreams sometimes deliver truths we don't or can't consciously articulate. You dream of a crumbling house and later realize, oh, that's how I feel about my relationship. The symbolism isn't accidental, it's revealing. If you kept a dream journal, and maybe tonight's a good night to start, you'd notice patterns, not just recurring images, but emotional signatures, a sense of unfinished business, a decision you haven't made, a part of you that wants to be heard. Dreams don't speak in bullet points, they speak in riddles, but you're fluent, even if you don't realize it yet. Here's something odd. In cultures where dream work is taken seriously, like among the indigenous Temiyar people of Malaysia or certain Navajo communities, dreams aren't just personal, they're social. They're shared with the group, and sometimes they guide decision-making, healing, or even hunting strategies. In those contexts, dreams aren't random at all. They're messages from the self, from ancestors, from the world. Western science mostly avoids that territory, but even Freud, with his cigar and his couch and his deeply questionable metaphors, believed dreams were the royal road to the unconscious. Sure, some of his theories haven't aged well, but the idea that your dreams hold secrets, that still resonates. You roll over now, half asleep, maybe smiling at something you don't remember yet. Your pillow cradles your head like it knows what's coming. And you're not alone in this. Right now, someone across the world might be dreaming of a similar forest or the same lost door. Maybe you'll both wake up and forget it. Maybe you'll sketch it into something new. A song, a story, a solution. Your sleeping mind is still working, quietly, gently, beyond reason. And maybe that's the most creative state of all. Somewhere in the quiet churn of your REM cycle, a bell tolls. Not a real one. Your ears are still sealed shut by the hush of sleep. But somewhere in the folds of your brain, a signal goes off. It's time to clean up. Because while you're lying there, soft and still, your brain is spring cleaning. Let's start with a basic truth. Your brain is a bit messy. During the day, it's busy thinking, reacting, learning, worrying, processing millions of inputs. That all produces waste, actual biological waste. Little byproducts from all that mental activity, proteins, metabolites, leftover neurochemical soup, stuff that, if left to pile up, starts to jam the gears. So, your brain has a cleanup crew, and it works best while you're asleep. The star player here is the glymphatic system, kind of like the brain's night janitor. Discovered only recently, 2012 in fact, the glymphatic system is a fluid network that clears out waste from your brain tissue. It kicks into high gear during deep sleep, especially in REM stages. And here's the cool part. Your brain cells actually shrink a bit while you sleep, making more room for cerebrospinal fluid to rush through and flush out the debris. Imagine your brain like a nightclub. During the day, it's packed, noisy, chaotic. But at night, the lights dim, the music slows, and a quiet crew moves through the empty dance floor, sweeping up confetti and mopping the floor. That's your glymphatic system in action. And what happens if it doesn't do its job? Well, this is where things get serious. There's growing evidence that poor sleep might be linked to long-term neurological issues, including Alzheimer's disease. Why? Because one of the waste products your brain needs to clear is a sticky protein called beta amyloid. In healthy brains, it gets flushed out during sleep. But if sleep is fragmented or insufficient, it builds up and clumps. And those clumps are one of the hallmarks of Alzheimer's. Not to alarm you, of course, this isn't about one bad night. Your brain's not filing a complaint if you stayed up too late watching cat videos. But over years and years, the pattern matters. Deep sleep, especially slow-wave NREM, isn't just restorative, it's preventive. But the science isn't settled. Some researchers argue that beta amyloid buildup might be a cause of poor sleep, rather than just a result. Chicken and egg, but with memory loss. Others say it's more complex, that inflammation, genetics, and other lifestyle factors play a big role too. Still, the connection between sleep and brain health is now undeniable. And here's another twist. Not everyone's brain clears waste the same way. Some people have more efficient glymphatic flow. Some have less. Age changes it. So does stress, diet, even posture. You might be more efficient at clearing toxins if you sleep on your side rather than your back. Something scientists observed in rodents and suspect might apply to humans too. Yes, your sleeping position might literally affect your brain's housekeeping. You adjust your pillow now, maybe subconsciously turning to your side. Smart move. Let's add another layer. While your brain's busy scrubbing away molecular junk, it's also sorting through memories. That task happens during both NREM and REM sleep, but in very different ways. NREM is like a filing cabinet. It strengthens the factual stuff, names, dates, vocabulary. During deep sleep, your hippocampus, the memory center, replays recent experiences to the cortex, which decides what to keep and what to toss. Then REM sleep gets all interpretive and artsy. That's where the emotional tint gets added. You don't just remember what happened, you process how it felt. This is why dreams often center around unresolved feelings, and why nightmares can echo real-life stress even if the content seems surreal. You might dream of an elevator stuck between floors, and your waking self shrugs. Weird. But inside the dream, you felt helpless, trapped, and that's the memory your brain is chewing on. Scientists once thought dreams were noise, mental static. Now they believe your brain is doing emotional triage, taking the day's highs and lows, pruning the unnecessary, consolidating the important, and packaging it with a mood. Which brings us to another strange phenomenon, the emotional reset. After a good night's sleep, you often feel a little calmer. Things that felt intense yesterday seem manageable. This isn't a fluke. Studies show that REM sleep dampens the intensity of negative emotions tied to memories. It doesn't erase them, but it smooths the edges, makes them easier to carry. You're not just sleeping, you're healing. Of course, there's still debate here. Some psychologists argue that emotional processing happens mostly during waking hours. Through talk, journaling, social interaction, they say dreams are reflections, not treatments. But more and more, neuroscience points to sleep as a key player in mental health. People with mood disorders like depression or anxiety often show disrupted REM cycles, and improving sleep through therapy, medication, or lifestyle changes can sometimes ease those symptoms more effectively than anything else. So when you lie down at night, your brain isn't checking out, it's checking in, cleaning up, filing memories, sanding down emotional splinters. It's doing work you won't remember, but work that matters. That's why sleep isn't a luxury. It's not something to cut back when you're busy. It's a full-time maintenance crew. And when you give it the time it needs, it thanks you in subtle ways. Clearer thinking, steadier emotions, longer memories, better dreams. You're deep into that rhythm now, your body quiet, your thoughts scattering into mist. Inside your skull, microscopic rivers flow, cleansing every corner. It's not just rest, it's restoration. Sleep isn't idle. It's everything happening when nothing's happening. You're dreaming again. You're not sure what about it. It's already slipping through your fingers like water through a sieve. But you know the feeling it left behind. Something off, like a hallway that keeps stretching or a phone you can't quite dial. That strange sensation, that's a lucid moment trying to break through. Tonight, we're pulling back the curtain on one of the most curious phenomena of all, lucid dreaming. It sounds like science fiction, but it's very real. A lucid dream is a dream in which you become aware that you're dreaming. You realize this isn't waking life, and sometimes that awareness gives you control. Not always total control, but enough to shape the story or steer the scene or pause midair and say, oh wait, I'm flying. It happens more often than you'd think. Roughly half of people report experiencing at least one lucid dream in their life. A lucky few, they can do it regularly, like visiting your own private holodeck where the rules are yours to bend. And if you're thinking, I want that, well, good news. Lucid dreaming can be trained. But first, let's talk about the science. For decades, scientists dismissed lucid dreaming as too subjective to study. How do you measure something that happens in someone's head? Then in the 1970s, a British psychologist named Keith Hearn cracked it. He asked lucid dreamers to signal with their eyes once they became aware. Since eye muscles aren't paralyzed during REM sleep, they could move their eyes in a prearranged pattern, left, right, to confirm lucidity. It worked, and suddenly, sleep labs had a reliable way to verify when someone was consciously aware inside a dream. Soon after, other researchers like Stephen LaBerge took it further, developing induction techniques and monitoring brain activity. They found that lucid dreams often show heightened activity in the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that usually sleeps through regular dreams. That might explain the sudden clarity, the sense of agency. It's like your inner narrator wakes up inside the dream. Some skeptics argue that these lucid states are just micro-awakenings, your brain teetering on the edge of consciousness, but the neural signatures suggest otherwise. Lucid dreams occupy a fascinating gray area. You're asleep, but you're self-aware. You're navigating a dream world with a waking mind. Sounds fun, right? So how do you do it? The most popular method is reality testing. Throughout your waking day, you pause and ask, am I dreaming? You check your hands. Do they look weird? Read a sentence, then read it again. Did it change? Or look at a clock. Dream clocks are notoriously unreliable. The idea is that by making this a habit, you'll eventually do it in a dream, and the illusion will crack. Another method is wake back to bed. You wake up early, say after 5 or 6 hours of sleep, stay awake for 20 minutes, then go back to sleep. This increases your chances of entering REM sleep consciously. It's a bit disruptive, but surprisingly effective. You can also keep a dream journal, writing down everything you remember as soon as you wake. This boosts dream recall and helps you spot patterns. Recurring themes, characters, places. Once you notice them, your brain starts flagging the mid-dream. Hey, this is familiar. This might be a dream, but maybe you're wondering, is this actually good for you? That's where things get complicated. Some researchers suggest that frequent lucid dreaming might interfere with sleep quality. If your brain stays too active during REM, it might not perform its usual emotional cleanup. Others worry it could blur the lines between reality and imagination, especially for people prone to dissociation. But many lucid dreamers report the opposite: deeper sleep, richer insights, even emotional healing. For some, it becomes a kind of nighttime therapy. Imagine facing a recurring nightmare, one where you're being chased or lost or falling, and suddenly realizing, I can stop this. That shift from victim to author can be life-changing. In fact, therapists have used lucid dreaming techniques to help people reduce the frequency and intensity of night terrors. And it's not just for trauma. Artists, athletes, and inventors have used lucid dreams to rehearse performances, test ideas, or explore impossible scenarios. You can paint with colors that don't exist, walk through memories you've forgotten, hug someone who's gone. Is it real? No, but it feels real, and sometimes that's enough. Still, not everyone wants to control their dreams. Some dream researchers argue that tampering with the dream state turns something sacred into something scripted. They believe dreams should surprise you, unsettle you, reflect your subconscious, not become just another virtual playground. You might agree, or maybe you prefer to fly. Either way, lucid dreaming forces us to ask big questions. What is consciousness? Where does the self begin and end? If you can think, feel, and decide inside a dream, who are you in there? For now, there's no clear answer, but the boundary between sleeping and waking is thinner than it seems. You turn in bed, the sheets cool against your legs. In your next REM cycle, you might find yourself in a forest that glows or a classroom that floats. And maybe, just maybe, you'll look down at your hands and something will be slightly off. And in that instant, the curtain will lift and you'll know you're dreaming. And then what you do next, that's entirely up to you. It's somewhere around 3 a.m. and your brain is doing something peculiar. Not the dreams this time, not the cleanup crew. It's something quieter, deeper. You're slipping into sleep spindles. Sounds like the name of a fairy tale villain, but they're actually bursts of rapid brain activity, quick flickers in the calm sea of NREM sleep. You can't hear them, but if we hooked you up to an EEG right now, we'd see them dancing across the screen, like little sparks firing in rhythm. They don't last long, maybe half a second, but they're important, very important. They're tied to memory, to learning, even to how deeply you sleep. If you're learning something new, say juggling or Japanese or JavaScript, your brain responds by increasing the number of sleep spindles that night. It's like it's saying, okay, this stuff matters. Let's lock it in. Spindles help reinforce memories, especially the kind that involve motor skills or complex tasks. But they also act like noise-canceling headphones. Seriously, when you're asleep, your brain is still technically on call. It's always listening a little. That creak in the hallway, that car passing outside, you don't usually wake up, but only because of sleep spindles. They block out external noise, protecting your sleep from mild disturbances. Think of them like tiny sleep guardians, whispering, ignore that. Keep dreaming. Nothing to see here. And here's something wild. Not everyone has the same number of spindles. Some people are naturally high spindle producers. Their brains are better at blocking noise and consolidating memories. Others, not so much. It's like being born with better earplugs and a built-in study guide. You're probably wondering, can I boost mine? Sort of. Some studies suggest that sleep spindles can increase with practice, especially if you learn new challenging things during the day. Language acquisition, music, even physical coordination tasks. The brain rewards challenge by saying, okay, let's spin this into long-term memory, hence the name. There's also some buzz around meditation and mindfulness, helping spindle activity, though the science is still sorting itself out. A few researchers are even experimenting with sound stimulation, gentle pink noise timed with brain waves to trigger more spindles. It's like syncing your brain to a lullaby. But again, not everyone agrees. Some scientists argue we still don't fully understand what sleep spindles do. They might be more about timing than content, aligning different brain regions to talk to each other efficiently. Or maybe they're just the electrical signature of a deeper process we haven't yet mapped. Either way, they matter. There's a fascinating study from 2013 you'd appreciate. 2 groups of people were taught the same task, tracing complex shapes while looking at a mirror, trickier than it sounds. One group napped afterward, the other didn't. The nappers with high spindle activity performed significantly better later. Their brains had quietly rehearsed while they slept. You'd never know it just watching them doze, but inside their minds were busy refining muscle memory. And if you've ever woken up and suddenly figured out a problem you couldn't crack the day before, that might have been spindles helping your brain sort through the noise. But it's not just tasks and trivia. Sleep spindles are also being studied in emotional resilience. People who show more spindle activity tend to bounce back better from stress. It's not just what your brain knows, it's how well it can keep calm and carry on. You might be thinking, wow, spindles are kind of doing the most. And yeah, they're like the overachievers of the sleep world, quietly multitasking in the background, making sure your memories stick, your sleep stays undisturbed, and your emotional thermostat doesn't spike in the morning. But as with everything in sleep science, not all is agreed upon. There's a debate over whether spindles change with age or whether they decline. Some studies say older adults produce fewer spindles, which could explain why memory and sleep quality often decline together. Others argue it's not about quantity, but timing. That age shifts when and how spindles fire, not how many. We don't have a final answer yet. But what we do know is this: sleep is not passive. It's an active, pulsing, dynamic state. One moment, your brain is sending out spindles like a Morse code machine. The next, it's archiving your thoughts, regulating your hormones, or crafting the next bizarre dream involving pirate raccoons on a moon-shaped ship. You're lying there, still as a stone, but your brain? It's working overtime. And now that you know about these hidden flickers, these sleep spindles, you'll never quite think of sleep the same way again. Not that you have to think right now. You can feel your body sinking even deeper. The outside world fades another shade quieter. Whatever thoughts you had when you lay down have floated off, replaced by a thick, gentle fog. And somewhere in your mind, another spindle fires, quiet, brilliant, and unseen. You're lying still, and yet your body is about to do something truly strange. In a few moments, if it hasn't already, it'll start to paralyze itself. Don't worry, it's perfectly safe. In fact, it's one of sleep's oldest safety features. And tonight, you're going to feel just a little closer to understanding why your muscles surrender each night while your mind dives headfirst into the surreal. This phenomenon is called REM atonia, and it's what keeps you from acting out your dreams. Imagine if your body mirrored everything your dream self was doing: running, fighting, flying. You'd be exhausted, or worse, injured by morning. So your brain developed a trick. As you enter REM sleep, it flips a neural switch and temporarily cuts off motor signals to your muscles. It's like a built-in child lock on your nervous system: arms, legs, torso, offline. Only your diaphragm and eye muscles stay active. That's why your breathing continues and your eyes might flutter beneath closed lids. But everything else is still. You, the dreamer, are fully immersed and fully anchored. But sometimes that system glitches. Enter sleep paralysis. You're half awake, aware, alert, but your body hasn't caught up. You try to move a finger and nothing happens. Try to call out and silence answers. You're stuck between sleep and wakefulness, locked in a body that feels like stone. It's terrifying, especially when paired with the most infamous element, hallucinations. Many people report seeing shadowy figures, hearing whispers, feeling a presence. Cultures all over the world have folklore to explain it: demons, ghosts, witches sitting on chests. The phenomenon is so common it has dozens of names. The Japanese call it kanashibari. In Newfoundland, it's the old hag. In Brazil, the pisadeira, a crone who tramples the chest of dreamers. The science is less dramatic. Most researchers believe these hallucinations are your dreaming brain bleeding into your waking one. You're in REM, but aware, so the mind tries to reconcile its dream imagery with your actual environment. The result is a kind of hybrid hallucination, half real, half imagined. And no, you're not going crazy. It's just a case of mismatched signals. Still, it feels very real. If you've ever had sleep paralysis, you probably remember it vividly. And if you haven't, count yourself lucky or curious. Some people actually seek it out. There's an entire community of lucid dreamers who try to induce sleep paralysis as a gateway. They lie still as they drift off, trying to keep the mind awake while the body sleeps. It's risky. But if you succeed, it can trigger a vivid, conscious entry into a dream. Of course, the line between nightmare and lucid dream is razor thin, and that raises a bigger debate. Some scientists argue sleep paralysis is an evolutionary leftover, an unfortunate side effect of rematonia. Others believe it might have once served a function, keeping us still and quiet in the dark so predators wouldn't notice, a kind of freeze response deeply buried in our nervous system. There's even a theory that ancient reports of alien abductions, ghost sightings, and out-of-body experiences could be traced back to sleep paralysis. Your brain wakes up in a vulnerable moment, and whatever fears you carry bubble to the surface, dressed in the costumes of the culture around you. But it's not all bad. Recent studies suggest that sleep paralysis might be manageable, if not transformable. By reframing the experience, people can reduce fear and even use the state creatively. Visual artists, musicians, and writers have drawn inspiration from that eerie in-between. Some spiritual traditions even interpret it as a doorway to higher states of consciousness. And here's a comforting fact. The more you understand it, the less scary it becomes. People who learn about rematonia and recognize the signs, like that buzzing, falling sensation, are more likely to stay calm during episodes. They remind themselves, this is normal. This is my brain doing its job. I'll be okay. And sure enough, the paralysis fades. Always. Your body comes back online. You wiggle a finger, stretch a leg, maybe sit up with that strange feeling like something just happened. But what? Tonight, maybe it won't happen, or maybe it will. Maybe your body will hum with that electric weight, and your mind will whisper, it's fine. I know this feeling. And if a shadow flickers in the corner of your vision, you'll know it's not a demon. It's just your brain doing rim jazz, improvising, blending wires. You roll to one side. The room feels warmer now, safer. Your muscles, still and quiet, are doing something ancient. They're holding space for your dream self to roam without consequence. It's a trade-off. Freedom within, stillness without. And if your body could speak tonight, it would say, don't move, just dream. You're floating now. Not literally, of course. You're still lying in your bed, maybe on your side, blanket pulled up just right. But inside, in the brain's quiet corridors, there's a sensation of weightlessness, a softness, as if gravity itself has dimmed its volume. And that's when something quietly profound happens. Your brain begins to edit the day. You might not notice it, but during sleep, especially in REM and deep NREM stages, your brain is performing a kind of emotional triage. Not everything you felt today gets archived equally. Some things are sharpened, others are dulled. It's like a museum curator deciding what deserves a spotlight and what belongs in the basement. That awkward email you sent maybe gets filed under embarrassment minor. The smile from the barista when you forgot your wallet, filed under unexpected kindness, hold for future reference. The stress from that afternoon meeting, weirdly recalibrated to a more manageable size. This is called emotional memory processing, and it's one of the sleep brain's coolest magic tricks. REM sleep in particular is where a lot of the emotional memory gets tuned. Researchers believe that dreaming allows us to re-experience emotions, but in a safer, symbolic way. We dream of falling, failing, flying, losing, loving. But in dreams, the intensity is turned down just enough to process them without being overwhelmed. It's therapy without a couch, exposure therapy, but with unicorns. Matthew Walker, a well-known sleep researcher, once described dreams as overnight therapy sessions. During REM, the brain replays emotional memories while suppressing the stress-related neurochemicals like noradrenaline. So you get to revisit your feelings without drowning in them. Pretty considerate, right? And it gets weirder. Not only does sleep help you manage emotions, it can actually predict emotional resilience. Studies show that people who get good quality REM sleep are better at bouncing back from difficult situations. They have fewer mood swings, better focus, and even more patience. Meanwhile, sleep-deprived people, their brains go full drama queen. In one famous fMRI study, sleep-deprived participants showed over 60% more activity in the amygdala, the brain's alarm bell, when shown upsetting images. It's like their brains had no filter. Every annoyance, every stressor, amplified. You'd think someone stole their lunch and insulted their houseplant. So if you've ever cried at a commercial after pulling an all-nighter, not just you, it's biology. Of course, not every scientist agrees on the exact mechanics. Some argue that emotional regulation happens more in REM when slow-wave activity helps with memory consolidation. Others believe REM is the star of the show. The debate is ongoing, but most agree without sleep, our emotional bandwidth collapses. Now, here's a little-known fact. People with PTSD often have disrupted REM sleep. Their dreams can become stuck, repeating trauma instead of healing it. It's like the brain tries to process the memory but can't complete the loop. Treatments like EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, may work partly because they mimic REM processes while awake. So sleep isn't just nice, it's necessary for emotional survival. You, right now, might be dreaming of something soft. Maybe a weird dream about a hallway that stretches into infinity, or a familiar face who says something cryptic and kind. Maybe it's a dream you won't remember, but the emotional dust it stirs will settle somewhere useful. And here's a thought. Have you ever woken up knowing you felt something in a dream, but you couldn't quite say what? Like an aftertaste of sadness or a vague warmth? That's your brain leaving behind emotional footprints without a map. The content is gone, but the lesson, filed. Some people even say dreams have helped them solve emotional dilemmas. They wake up with clarity. A decision that felt impossible now feels obvious. A grudge feels a little lighter. A memory that hurt just stings a bit less. That's sleep, polishing your emotional windows with invisible hands. Of course, you can't control the process. You can't direct your brain and say, hey, please deconstruct that awkward family dinner. But you can set the stage, keep a rhythm, sleep enough, respect the weird little system that turns chaos into calm. If you do, your dreams will do the rest. Tonight, as you drift further in, your body stays perfectly still, but your emotional world begins to stretch and shift. The loud becomes soft. The sharp becomes rounded. You won't remember most of it, but tomorrow something will feel a little easier. You'll smile when you didn't yesterday. You'll shrug off a comment that might have stung. You'll sit at a red light and not feel the urge to check your phone. And you won't know why, but your dreaming self will. Because while you sleep, your brain is doing its quiet therapy. No notepad, no awkward eye contact, just symbols, sensations, and whispers that dissolve before morning. That's enough for now. You've been sleeping long enough now that time has lost its grip. It doesn't feel like 3 a.m. or 4 or 5. It just feels hushed, like you're in a room where clocks aren't allowed. And somewhere in that timeless dark, a new part of your brain lights up, the part that invents. See, now your dreams shift into something stranger, less about memory, more about making meaning. And this, whether you realize it or not, is where sleep starts to touch creativity. You're entering the weird and wonderful world of associative thinking. Here's how it works. While you dream, especially during REM, your brain becomes incredibly good at connecting ideas that don't usually go together. Think: an apple turning into a telephone, a stairway made of jellyfish, or that time you dreamed your math teacher was your dog and honestly, he was still a better communicator. In waking life, your thoughts follow logic, cause and effect, but dreaming loosens those rules. It invites surreal combinations, metaphor, symbolism, nonsense that secretly makes sense. This is why dreams can feel like riddles, why artists and inventors have, for centuries, credited dreams with their breakthroughs. Paul McCartney said the melody for Yesterday came to him in a dream. So did the periodic table. Hello, Dmitri Mendeleev. And if you've ever woken up with a solution to a problem you couldn't crack the day before, yep, same brain trick. During REM, your prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for judgment and critical thinking, goes a little quiet. Meanwhile, more primitive and creative areas light up like a noir film. This lets your brain explore without the usual limits. It's playtime in the neural sandbox. And no, this isn't just random dreaming. Sleep researchers have found that REM actually enhances problem solving. In one study, participants were given a logic puzzle. Those who napped and entered REM were twice as likely to find the hidden shortcut compared to those who stayed awake. Twice. And that shortcut wasn't taught. It was discovered, or rather invented. It makes you wonder how much of your daytime creativity depends on what happens at night. Here's a weird but true fact: even rats dream creatively. In a famous MIT study, rats trained to run a maze showed specific neuron patterns while they were learning. Later, during REM sleep, those same neurons fired again, but with variations. The rat brain was remixing the maze, changing paths, creating alternatives it had never physically taken. It was imagining possibility, just like you. Right now, your dream might be inventing a place you've never been. A city made of glass, a boat that rows itself, a version of your apartment where everything's flooded but you're not afraid, you're just floating, hair waving like seaweed. You might dream of a stranger who says something that sticks with you for years, or a word that doesn't exist but feels like it should. The point isn't to remember it all. The point is that your mind is rehearsing what ifs. It's building bridges between ideas you'd never dare to link while awake. And sometimes those bridges survive the morning. You write something bold, solve something tricky, or simply walk into your day feeling a little more inventive. There's an ongoing debate in the scientific community about whether dreams are byproducts of brain function or functional in themselves. Do we dream because our brains are firing randomly during memory processing? Or is dreaming itself an evolved adaptation for creativity and insight? Nobody knows for sure, but one thing's clear: the dreaming brain is not idle. It is selective, it is structured, it is, in its own dreamlike way, intelligent. And if dreams are a creative tool, then sleep is the workshop. Some lucid dreamers even try to harness this directly. They enter dreams with a task in mind, solve a math problem, rehearse a performance, design a structure. It doesn't always work, but sometimes the brain responds, building answers in metaphor, wrapped in story. Imagine asking your dream for help with a painting and waking up with an image in your mind, a staircase made of leaves. It doesn't make sense at first, but later, something clicks: the structure, the flow, the colors, the feeling. That's the dream giving you a riddle, and somewhere in that riddle is a spark. Maybe you've had one of those moments already, an idea that came out of nowhere, a phrase, a design, a shift in perspective. You didn't try to think of it, it just arrived like a gift left by your dreaming self. That's the power sleeping on it. Right now, your brain is doing that behind the curtain, quietly rearranging pieces, sorting the symbols, finding the connections no conscious mind would dare to chase. It's not just problem solving, it's imaginative expansion. The difference between a blank page and a spark. You may not remember tonight's dream, but its fingerprints will be on something tomorrow. A choice, a phrase, a drawing, or just a small moment of delight when two ideas collide in your head and suddenly make sense. And when that happens, remember this. It started here, in the stillness, in the dark, in the floating world between logic and lunacy. Sleep well, dreamer. Your creativity is dreaming with you. The night is almost over now. Your breath has fallen into that barely there rhythm, so soft it's like the air itself is listening. Outside, the stars are still holding their posts. Maybe the streetlights hum faintly. Maybe a distant car rolls by, muffled into oblivion. But inside, your brain is tying off loose ends. You're in the final sleep cycles now, what scientists sometimes call the integration phase. All those things you felt, seen, learned, dreamed, they're being woven together into something strangely solid. Memory, mood, creativity, they've each had their turn. Now comes the stitching. You see, the last hours of the night are rich with REM and light NREM sleep. And together they play the final notes of a biological symphony. This is where your brain doesn't just process what happened, but decides what it means. Emotional weight gets redistributed. Long-term memory files are backed up. Some are thrown out. It's a bit like housekeeping, only your brain is Marie Kondoing your life experiences. Does this spark meaning? No? Toss it. The dreams you're having now are lighter, more fragmented. Maybe they blend in with your waking thoughts. Your to-do list sneaking in, a random song lyric getting stuck on loop, your brain whispering, don't forget the charger. It's trying to prepare you gently for morning. But there's still magic here. This stage is where insight sometimes lands without warning. Like an echo bouncing back from a canyon you didn't know you shouted into. Some researchers believe this final REM phase is uniquely positioned to blend disparate kinds of knowledge, sensory, emotional, procedural. It's not just, did you remember the thing, but do you understand the thing now? This is the dream as a meaning maker. And here's something strange. In some indigenous cultures, the last dream of the night is considered the most important. It's the one you're most likely to remember, the one that's meant to guide your waking. Science can't prove that, but maybe that's the point. There's always been a gap between what we can measure about dreams and what they feel like. That gap might be permanent, or maybe, just maybe, it's part of the design. If you remembered every dream in perfect clarity, you'd never get out of bed. You'd be too busy analyzing why your grandma was also a time traveler, or why your childhood pet gave you stock tips. Instead, your brain lets most of it dissolve. But sometimes it leaves a trace, a lingering image, a sudden clarity, a mood you can't quite name but recognize like an old friend. And that's the final secret of dreaming. It shapes you without asking for credit. So many of your opinions, your gut feelings, your creativity, your intuition, they've been stirred and softened by nights like this. Nights you don't remember, dreams you never got to think. And as the earliest light begins to bleed into the edges of your room, your brain starts its final transition. You might wake up in 10 minutes or 2 hours or snooze your alarm 3 times. But when you do wake, you'll carry the imprint of tonight's quiet work. And maybe, just maybe, your day will go differently because of it. You'll remember the thing you almost forgot. You'll feel a little less rattled when something goes wrong. You'll get a clever idea in the shower and not know where it came from. It came from here, from you asleep. You don't need to understand all of it. No one does, not even the scientists who devote their lives to decoding REM cycles and dream recall and neurotransmitter behavior. Some questions may never be fully answered, but that's okay. Because the not knowing, that's part of the dream too. You've spent the night in a world where memories are softened, emotions are balanced, ideas are born, and meaning is made. And now your brain, humble genius that it is, begins to close the curtain. The orchestra quiets. The lights dim behind your eyelids. And somewhere inside, a voice you'll never quite hear whispers, "We'll do this again tomorrow." So here we are, the end of tonight's long, quiet question. Why do we dream? Maybe now you know a little more, or maybe you feel a little less certain. That's fine too. Certainty isn't required for sleep. Let it drift. Let the science settle like mist on a cool lake, soft and wide. Let the theories blend into the background hum of the fan in your room. Let the strange facts and whispered stories blur into that place where logic fades, where you float between meaning and mystery. Your brain has worked hard tonight. It has curated emotion, stored memory, sculpted insight out of shadows. And whether or not you remember a single dream, know this: something in you has been rearranged, just slightly, just enough. So you lie there quiet and still. The world outside is beginning again, but not for you. Not yet. You get to stay in this slow-motion cocoon a little longer. You've traveled through Freud's cluttered study, through silent sleep labs, through the electric forests of your own REM cycles. You've seen what dreams can do. And now you can rest, because what's left isn't for thinking. It's for feeling and for letting go.